pimp? Well, being a pimp is a bad thing. Being a pimp is where you have a stable of prostitutes that you control, and you control them by force. Mm-hmm. And you have a bottom bitch, which is your next in line. You have your pimp and your bottom bitch, which is like your highest ranking female.
So Corey.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Corey is the bottom bitch here.
Hashtag.
Yeah, hashtag bottom bitch.
Good, you ready?
Yeah.
What were we talking about?
Hold on, Joe he crapped his pants and he had to go. So next time we do a podcast, make sure he brings a pair of...
Chonies extra.
Yeah.
Always.
We didn't want him shortless over there.
Yeah, it kind of smelled.
He's one of those guys that has to get completely nude to go to the bathroom, so he lost everything.
I think we all know that guy. We all have at least one of them.
Did he think he was going to leave? We weren't going to talk about him.
Oh, no. That was like, okay, you know this is happening, right? I mean, you know.
But to get back right into it, what's the fix? What do you think the fix is?
Oh, God, man.
For which part? Human trafficking? Or?
No, we're talking about human trafficking, but I think with society in general is like I don't know if there is a fix. I think it happened, the human behavior, based on past observations, is it's going to swing back. We get very liberal for a while. We let criminals out. Here's an example. California had this massive boom in population, but we were against building more prisons. We built more schools, acknowledging that we had more people, but we wouldn't build prison because we were in denial about the criminal element that's going to be there with the population. It's just something that happens. It's statistics.
We have the private prisons that people don't like.
I don't like them either.
And then we have a problem of working in the ER.
Right.
There's a massive mental health problem.
Absolutely there is. Oh my God, dude, there's so much dealing with...
There's PERT teams. There's special teams.
So when I first started back in 1997, we would commit somebody on a 5150 hold, welfare institution hold, to be evaluated by a professional on a 72-hour commit, which means that as long as they could keep them with 72 hours. It wasn't like a mandatory. I mean, they might evaluate them and say they can go. But 5150 allowed us to take them in for an evaluation. We might have done 1 or 2 a week as a squad. I mean, with cops being, there's on our squads at the time were probably like 10 patrol cops at the time.
Is that what year?
97, 98.
What year did they stop in San Diego County? What year did we start getting rid of the mental health facilities, the institutions?
Oh, that was well before my time being in patrol.
It was Reagan, right?
Well, that was, from what I understand, was the Reagan era. And, every politician has their great things and every politician has their bad things. I think it was Ed Koch that said, if you agree with me 100% of the time, you're not my friend. You're my follower. A friend's going to agree with you about 80% of the time and go, hey, yeah, I like you for the most part, but this 20% over here is kind of BS. In 97, 98, when I was a young rookie patrol cop, like I said, we would commit maybe 1 or 2 people a week as a squad on my team.
How many people were in a squad?
8 to 10. It's 10, and then as the city got bigger, that obviously got bigger. Like right now in Swing Watch, I think in Chula, I think they send out 18. That city is...
And you're committing somebody every night.
Oh, easily. Multiple people.
What's the change?
Gosh, I wish I knew. I know that there's a lot of people on meds. And that's actually something that's kind of unique, since we're sitting here in a gun shop, active shooters. I think that is we talk about all the weaponry and everything else, but what we don't talk about is, if I'm not mistaken, something like 98% of our mass shooters are on a psych med of one type, one form or another. So we're gonna go,
and a broken home,
right? And let's look at Columbine. Columbine, the parent or lack of parenting on that one, because those kids had shotguns and crap and building bombs in the living room and in their rooms, and their parents knew about it. But there was no discipline. I don't know if necessarily we can say that's a broken home. Let's just say that's a shitty home.
Yeah.
I mean, lack of parenting. That's the parent the kid that's gonna turn around and you, dad, and have no consequences for that. Oh, little Billy, you're gonna have a timeout. You pull that at my house. Oh, that's not happening.
No.
That's not going to happen.
You probably turn them into the police.
Right. Exactly. But with the mental health portion of things, like a lot of people are on psych meds. I don't know. I think a lot of people have lost the ability to. I don't like using the term, but communicate their feelings. You know, I'll be honest. In my profession, if you in the beginning, earlier days, showing weakness was bad, but you held all your emotions in. You didn't talk about things. You know. Then we really got into debriefing. That book that was talking about emotional survival for law enforcement. Mental health is a big deal. But I also we have a combination. We have the mental health thing, and then we have the lack of enforcement. I mean, we see the homeless people all over the place. You guys remember a couple of years ago when we had the hepatitis A breakout?
Yes.
Okay, how many people died from that?
No.
Like 80. Okay, Hep A? Seriously?
Yeah.
In Southern California, we're not a third
2000s.
world. We're not a third world, but because we had people living in third world conditions and we did nothing about it. You know, we have this soft spot for as a society for homeless people, and you know, we let them be homeless. Don't tell me that's not a mental condition to think that's not that's okay to be homeless, and that living in a tent on the side of the freeway is okay. How does that jive mentally? I mean, how does that make sense to anybody, saying that this is an okay thing? And I think it's bad for us as a society to say, no, we're not going to allow you to do that.
So it's a tricky situation because of the country we live in, right?
Right. Well,
You don't want to take somebody's rights away. If you want to live in a tent somewhere and it's public property, because now you
Right.
can live in public property.
right.
Okay. Now, is it a mental health problem? Probably.
Right.
But what's this? We've backed ourselves into a corner.
We
where
have really backed ourselves
can't
into.
fix it.
No, we can. It's going to take a step back and go, okay, what is the definition of insanity? Repeating the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. We've done it over and over again.
So what are these sheriff, like we live in the county,
Right.
the sheriff community outreach teams will go out there and they'll give people shots.
Sure.
And in these encampments, they'll bring nurses and they'll give them shots and they'll give them pamphlets on where to stay, and they're not going to the shelters.
No, they're
wanna
not.
live
And there's I'm sorry. There's a farce of that we have this massive hunger problem here. We do not. We may in residences, but the homeless don't have a hunger issue. They are fed and fed well. There are so many reasons, so many people going out there and giving things to people. I got jaded a little bit when we were doing I want to say Toys for Tots. We were doing like Christmas present delivery thing.
People are pulling up in Mercedes.
Well, no, we were actually taking them to the house, and it was I love kids, and it was really some of the ones that were really cool because you walk in and like you were Santa. That was all the presents they were getting. But then there were like 3 or 4 different places we went to where they would go, oh, just put them over there with the others, because there were all these multiple groups who are trying to do good work, but they don't talk to each other. And you got people getting 4 and 5 different goodie bags, and their kids are getting really well taken
And
care
should
of.
be spread out.
And then you look at how they're living, and they're living in a 2-bedroom apartment. It's actually pretty nice, but they've got a 70-inch screen TV, and their car outside's got 20-inch rims on it. So that book that I talked about earlier, it was Freakonomics.
Yeah.
One of the chapters of there is why do crack dealers still live with their parents,
Yeah.
or live with their moms? And it's because I worked a case where this guy was a drug dealer in a gang, and he did a very large drug deal, and he had a lot of money. We're still working the case, so we weren't going to take him down yet. But what did he do? Instead of going and try to buy a piece of property or invest in an apartment or anything, what did he do? He went and rented a Lamborghini for a week and threw a bunch of different parties, burned through all of his profit, everything that he had made in less than a week. Okay, so if he had taken it and gone, oh well, I'm going to pay off my my car note and
Student loans.
Right, exactly. So that is it fixable? I think it is, but as a society, we have to hold people accountable for things. One thing I absolutely hate is people telling you that you have to go to college to make a living, because you don't. It depends on what you want to do. My oldest, who is a graphic designer, he builds websites and stuff like that, he needed to. But my daughter, who's a hairdresser, she didn't. She went to her trade school. And my middle boy, who's an ASL interpreter, he has to get certified. He's going through more stuff. What's comical is my daughter's beauty school was longer than my police academy.
I saw a meme about that recently. I didn't know if it was true.
It's insane. And I love her to death because she's such a sweet kid. And I tell her, I'm like, Pumpkin, you realize that you had to go to an academy your school was like 400 hours longer than mine. And she goes, yeah, but Dad, I could ruin somebody's hair. I'm like, we could kill somebody.
Yeah.
You know, if the use of force stuff, I mean, it's important to learn, and we don't put a whole lot of that's a whole other topic for another day about training budgets and things like that. How do we fix it though? Is I think accountability is a big one. Not letting, I think that starts even like at school. You know, the absolute disrespect that I see students give teachers. I will be the first to tell you that I was a absolute nightmare of a student. When I was terrible. When I was a bailiff, I had my 8th grade history teacher as one of the jurors in my classroom, or in my courtroom. And I remember her, she's looking at me, and I actually had to go up to her and I go, I'm sorry. I did. I felt terrible. I was such an awful student. I don't know how you tolerated me. I have no idea. And I didn't have to be home till 10. My dad probably trusted me too much. You know.
In the same category.
Yeah. I was able to find trouble all on my own.
But did you ever get caught?
No, there's a big difference. So it was actually funny when I was doing my background for the police department. They go, okay, you have to tell us what the heaviest crime that you ever did that you never got caught for. And I was like, well, I'm thinking I was not that bad. And I remember my best friend and I went to go out and we were going to go out and do some tagging before tagging was cool. And here I am, we're at our school, and I'm going to write something like about Metallica or something, right? Because that was cool. And I start to reach over for the spray paint. And this tells you what kind of... I start spraying, and I push down, and I'm like, why is it raining? Because it's pointing back at me. And now I'm covered in silver spray paint. And I've got to figure out how the hell am I going to do this when I get home and explain to my dad. So now my bike that I rode there is now... silver. So accountability is a big thing. Now we'll fast forward from the 8th grade. 9th grade, I had a teacher, and I'm still friends with him to this day, Richard Birch. He was my English teacher. I had him all 4 years of high school. He was the hardest teacher I ever had. He was probably the teacher I got to be the closest with, him and another guy named Dennis Hollenbeck, who I'm still friends with to this day. Mr. Birch held me accountable. Mr. Birch said, you know what, Pete, I really, really like you. You're a good kid, but you earned it because you didn't do the work. And he held me accountable. So accountability at the house. I don't like when I was a cop, I hated being somebody's parent. I hated it when parents would say, you do this or I'm going to have that cop arrest you. It's like, no, time out. That's not how this works. You need to be the parent. They need to fear you more than me. Mm-hmm. You know, they need to fear you. But then we look at how kids get dropped off at school, you know, and you have a parent who's still in their pajamas and they're a train wreck. And then they come back 8 hours later to pick that kid up and they're still their effing pajamas.
Right.
You know, I had a kid where I remember getting a radio call and I had a trainee and we were working graveyards and it was 7 o'clock in the morning and our shift ended at 8 and I'm tired. I had it. We got a radio call to an elementary school of a 8-year-old refusing to get out of the car to go to school. And I about lost my mind. And again, it was mom was in PJs, not setting an example for this kid.
Yeah. Get dressed.
Get dressed.
Go.
Yeah, because the kid's probably thinking, why should I do that if you're not? And you're going to pick me up wearing that same stuff, so why should I? And all I remember is, like, you have about 3 seconds. I put my head in the car and say, you have about 3 seconds to get out of the car before I beat your ass in front of all of your friends. I'm going to spank you in front of all of them. You can't do that. Watch me.
Yep.
And he got out and went to school. And I'm like, Mom, what's wrong with you? You know, I didn't have to spank my kids that much, but I did. You know, it's accountability. Now, I will tell you that the reason my kids are good is not me, it's my wife.
We know.
Yeah. But how do we fix it is I think it starts at home. It starts with, you know, you see, how many movies have we seen with, they talk about how terrible high school is. And this goes back to movies from like the 70s and, you know, how terrible it is. Don't allow that. Why do you think school resource officers got put in schools? They don't want to be there.
No.
They'd be out. Well, some do. And some school resource officers absolutely love kids. And you see some of them. That's one that. Oh, I'm not a big fan of social media. There is some cool stuff that I see where I'm like, I love that. You know, I see interaction with some school resource officers are just fantastic with kids, and they really understand how to communicate with them, and they get involved, and the kids actually end up loving these guys. You know, and that's what you want. You don't want to be the guy from, was it Parkland, who was hiding behind, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how that happens, but you want to be the guy that the students go, I'm going to be the guy when I grow older that's going to run to the gunfire. We call it running to the thunder. You go to the sound of gun. Everybody else is running away. Your job is to go in and hunt them down and make sure they don't hurt anybody else. You know, that's the only time where you really get super aggressive. Things changed after Columbine, big time. I was going through the police academy when the LAPD shootout happened in Hollywood. I remember it clearly. I remember my training officer. Now, believe it or not, we just got done with a 7-mile run. Yes, back then I could run 7 miles.
Prove it.
Yeah, no, back then. But we just done a run, and our training officer came up to us as we're all sitting there, and he says, "What would you do if 2 armed robbery suspects went into a bank with automatic weapons, came out fully in body armor, and came out shooting out with the cops? What would you do? Because that's going on right now in LA." And that was the start of carrying.
The answer was they came into gun stores.
Yeah, they went to B&B Guns.
Yeah.
And you know, how embarrassing is that you don't have the resources, because they expect you to have the resources.
I'd say no, I got it.
Yeah.
I'm up here on the second floor.
Yeah, and they
got my dope card over here.
That was actually a cool thing that they came up with. They had a little saying after that. It was that day in Hollywood was the day that willpower beat firepower. You know, and that was actually the day that luck happened to be on our side. You know, the bearded guy in the sky smiles upon cops and fools, and you got to be a fool to be a cop. So, you know, that worked out well for us that day.
But, you know, people look at cops like, oh, the bad guy. At the end of the day, you have like 50 different jobs.
Yeah, you end up being like a pastor, a social worker, a dad, a therapist. Yeah, I've done things.
First responder, EMT.
Yeah. I've done stuff where I've held a 16-year-old. I remember it very clearly at the East Street Trolley Station. This young 16-year-old kid got center punched with a 16-gauge shotgun, and it was close because he had stippling. It was right here, and I'm holding his hand. I'm talking to him, and he was like, "Am I gonna die?" I'm like, "No, you're gonna be fine, dude. I've seen people come back from worse with you. You're not gonna die. Just keep talking to me. Let me know. Medics are coming. We're gonna get you the best trauma unit. You're gonna make it." And I'm watching his stomach swell, and I know that the moment they cut him open, he is probably going to lose all blood pressure, and he's probably not going to. But I can't tell him that. I have got to, and I'm praying, please let this kid live. He ended up dying, but you know, I'm 1 for 13 in CPR. The one that lived was a guy who fought us for 5 minutes on a meth high. He was going through methamphetamine psychosis, and he was fighting us like a PCP suspect would. That was really bad. Then he went to cardiac arrest, and we brought him back. And to this day, we still don't know who he is, because 3 days later, when he was in the hospital, no, AMA by ripping out his IVs and walking out of the hospital. Is that an AMA?
I guess
I
if
think
you go
maybe-
elope.
Right, yeah.
Elope.
He just left. You know, there were, I've seen just the evils that people will do to each other.
So you seen shit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
How did you cope with that? Because I know there's young cops out there right now going through, getting out of the academy and the first day on shift, they see some fucked up shit. How do you help them cope with it?
Not just that. Think of all of our Afghanistan vets right now.
That's where
vets
I
in
think
general.
everybody in general is. I think it takes a hell of a lot of courage to talk to people, and talk to people. You know, that's one of the things I like about the military guys is I have a bunch of them that I'm friends with on social media, and one of them said, "Hey, do a buddy check. Text your friend and go, hey, what's up, fucker?" You know, which I was like, that's awesome
Yeah,
because that's what the
that's-
military guys do. You know, I would say that acknowledge that you're human. And
You're gonna have those feelings.
you're gonna have those feelings. So this tattoo on my arm right here that says "Cry Havoc" and "Let's Set the Dogs of War." Turner J. Hawkinson, 9/14/86 to 12/1/16. I lost TJ to PTSD. TJ was a Marine Corps dog handler, probably one of the most brilliant minds I've ever met. A hell of a dog trainer, young kid, just bright as can be. Got into law school. Actually was a public defender, and lost his job at the public defender's office because he actually believed in the death penalty. It's like some people just need to be, they're just not good, and that didn't go over very well. So he's a probationary deputy public defender, and they let him go. That was more than TJ could handle. I was fortunate enough to have him open up to me. I considered him like a brother. We met each other through the dog world. And TJ told me of an incident that happened when he was serving in Iraq, where the team that he was with took fire. They went into a house to get out of fire, and there was a father and a family in there. Their interpreter and the father were yelling at each other. The father tried to grab the interpreter's AK. Nothing good's going to happen with that. So TJ did what he had to do and ended up shooting the guy. And what bothered me and why I admired him the most was because he was so human about it. He was like, the guy was just trying to protect his family. And that really bothered him. And then there were some other things that happened as well that kind of piled up onto it. There was some issues with a spouse or an ex-spouse, and some stuff that happened with one of his parents. But I considered him like a brother, and I wish the clues had been there. I was talking to him. I didn't see any indicators. And one day I couldn't get a hold of him. It was actually right after the Trump election. It was pretty funny because he was sending me a text message. He was like, dude, this guy actually might win this. And he was all happy about General Mattis. You know, because he was like, we got, DefSec, this is going to be awesome. And being a Marine, he was very proud of that. And I couldn't get a hold of him. And then his girlfriend at the time, they'd actually been over at my house like a week earlier. And his girlfriend at the time called me and left a message and said, hey, please call me. It's very important. And I'm kind of putting two and two together. And I knew what area, I knew where he lived. And so I actually happened to know the watch commander for that area. And so I called him up and I go, hey, can you check your calls for service and let me know if you have any, we call them 1144s, 1145s. 1145 is a suicide attempt, 1144 is a dead body. And I gave him the name and I said, just call me back when you can. This is an old high school buddy. And he calls me back and he goes, I'm really sorry, but yeah. We got the call and he had taken his, he died by suicide. And I miss him every day. That guy was just a brilliant man, and I really wish that he had been able to open up and talk to me. I don't hate him at all for doing what he felt he had to do at the time. I have to understand that at that time, that's what he thought. I really wish he hadn't. But and that goes for all the vets and everybody that's gotten into PTSD. The resources that are out there for you. There is nothing. It's more. There's nothing dishonorable about it. It's actually more honorable to admit it. The only thing that I've had bother me in my profession was doing the CPR on a 2-year-old. who was about the size of my 2-year-old at the time. And I can tell you when I got the call, and that was in 1998, and I can tell you where I was when I got the call. I can tell you exactly how I drove there. I actually think I remember what car number I was driving. I remember taking my car and going over a curb because there was traffic and nobody was getting out of the way, so lights and siren pulled to the right and nobody was moving, but I had to get up there. And when I finally got on scene, my beat partner had beaten me there. His name was Jaime. Jaime had the kid out and was doing compressions on the kid. And Jaime had a cool cop mustache, and there was a piece of pink birthday cake in his mustache. And I took over for CPR because the kid had thrown up in his mouth. And when it was all said and done, we were able to talk about it. And it was cool is the PD actually gave us resources for it. They were like, hey, are you guys good? You want to talk to anybody? They actually had it like, here's a number if you want to. You don't have to tell us that you're calling, which was great because it gave you that option of
anonymity.
Yeah, which is a word I can't say tonight. But I know that there's resources out there. Just reach out, check on each other.
You brought up a good point.
That's not only for just military, for all first responders as well. I mean, not just cops, firefighters, paramedics, because paramedics are there and firefighters are there trying to put the pieces back together. Mm-hmm. Yeah, granted, they have to wait till we make the scene safe, but they do a lot of stuff as well, and they see a lot of things. They see all the medical stuff. They actually end up really having to deal with a lot of the family stuff, but they see the gruesome stuff, and they're trying. I have some very good friends that are paramedics, and I love them like family, and it's good to talk about things. I'm sure that if you've had any kind of traumatic incident, it's good to talk about it because the more you talk about it, the better it processes in your brain, from what I understand. It's why I don't mind talking about this stuff, because if I'm talking about it, then I think other people go, okay, he's talking about it, why can't I?
And I think that's a big misconception, is that we're just dudes and nobody else feels like that. I'm the only one that feels this way. And I want to bring this up because so the reason I know James is because his wife is a nurse,
right? And
I'm a respiratory therapist. We work together at the hospital.
Okay.
I now work in a different place, but being a respiratory therapist, we see people that aren't breathing.
Right. Kind of need to bring to live.
I see you on either when you're born or when you're leaving. Usually in between sometimes.
Right.
I had this conversation with my wife probably a couple months ago, that out of the hundreds of people that I've terminally extubated,
mm-hmm.
adults,
sure,
for anywhere from 20 years old to 100 years old, right? Can't remember any of their faces.
Right.
I have no idea what any of them look like. I could tell you every single child that I did CPR on.
Sure.
Every single one.
Well, a child's life is so precious and so innocent. I mean, how many people will lay down their life for a child that they don't know?
So we had one where it was a family party was going on, and the child was missing for about 15 minutes.
Okay.
Couldn't find the kid. So everybody's looking around for little Johnny. Can't find him. There's an above ground pool in the backyard. 15 minutes have gone by. Find him. Nobody knows how to do CPR.
Okay.
Takes another 10, 12 minutes for fire to show up. They do CPR. By the time they get him to us, it's been almost a half an hour. About a half an hour. The kid's pretty dead. We do CPR, we get pulses back multiple times.
Right.
It's the drugs.
Right, and that's the same thing that happened with the kid with mine. They brought him back, but it was, like you were saying, he was brain dead.
So this has been one of the hardest ones for me, is that we were doing CPR, the family came in and saw, mom and dad saw, watch us trying everything we could possibly do. We all already know the outcome, right?
Right.
And they made a decision right there to donate that 2-year-old kid's organs and save 10 other kids.
Yeah.
How did they do that? That still bothers me.
Well, yeah, well, okay, well, but maybe they're...
Not in a negative way. It's
No.
just, I can't even imagine having to make that decision.
I think maybe there are also people who are very pragmatic. Like me, I'm very, like, okay, we triage as a cop, especially in patrol, you triage calls. You get sent to calls, and there may be what we call a priority 1 call, which is, a imminent threat to life or like a high danger level. And they're stacking up, and you can see, especially now with the computers in the car, you see which calls are holding, and your job is to try and get in there, clear that call, and move on to the next one. And clear that call and move on to the next one. Somebody's got to go to jail. Got to go to jail. Or if something happens where you need to intervene in medical attention or legal attention or give these people resources, your job is to get in there, and in and out as quick as you can, because there's calls stacking, especially on a busy night.
So you're just compartmentalizing all this stuff.
Yeah. You hold it all up because you don't deal with it right then and there. You get home. I remember being a canine guy, being in, I remember one night I had 2 pursuits in one night. Unheard of. And I've got this adrenaline going through.
Ready to go.
I am just through the roof. And I remember not sleep, but then I reflected on that book that I read, Emotional Survival for Law Enforcement. And it was like, okay, if you have one of those high tense situations where you have this adrenaline dump, go out and do some PT, do something to get that stuff out of your system, because you are not going to be able to sleep, especially when we start talking about the hypervigilance. We get into hypervigilance, everybody else's homeostasis is like at this level, and then we go up to this level here, and we're at this level for as long as your shift is, and your head's constantly looking around, and then when you come back home, you go way below it, and now you're down here. And it was one of the funniest things was I was kind of reading the book and I'm watching TV, and then they said in the book, they're like, and one of the things that people do is constantly channel surf and not pay attention. I'm like, and I have the remote in my hand and I'm doing that, and it made me realize that, okay, being a cop was what I did. It's not who I am. And I got away from wearing...
How long did it take you to...
9 years.
This is why we're having this conversation. You're coming out of the academy. It took you 9 years, right?
Right. Well, what's cool now is that actually in the academy, Emotional Survival for Law Enforcement is one of the books that they make them read. So we've come leaps and bounds. Before it was like, hey, just suck it up, quit being such a pussy.
Yeah.
And now it's like, you get done with it, dude. I've cried at scenes. I've cried with my partners because we just saw something. We just did, we had an accident where the family died, or we told them. I've had to tell 2 people that their family, that their loved ones is dead. It's not something I hated doing it. And one of them, it was like, when I went and told the dad, it was a radio call from an agency up in Oregon. Kid had overdosed. And they said, we've been trying to get a hold of him. We can't get a hold of anybody. We need somebody to go knock on the door. I'm like, well, this sucks.
Yeah.
This is just a crap call. And I remember walking up to the door, knocking on the door. Dad is one of the nicest guys. I mean, he's like, hey, officer, what's going on? I go, hey, are you so-and-so? Are you so-and-so's dad? Yeah, okay, great. Hey, is there anybody else in the house with you? Anybody, like, a spouse or children or anything? Yeah, I'm like, can you bring them here? And I think he's like the wheel spinning. He knows something. He's something knows something's going on. And I flat out told him, listen, there's no easy way to say this.
Sometimes the truth is the best.
I am here because whatever agency it was, I'll say Medford, Oregon, because I think that's who it was. Medford, Oregon detectives reached out to us. Your son has passed away. It looks like it's an overdose, and they're trying to get a hold of you because they need to confirm some things. And I said, I'm sorry. We have counselors that can come and talk to you. And the dad looked at me and goes, I knew this call was coming. I knew this was going to happen. Because the kid had an ongoing drug issue. But that one hit me pretty good. I went out to the car and I cried on that one. And there's a couple other times where I cried, but not everything is bad. We can't focus on everything that happens as bad. Like when you catch that really bad guy and you have done, your hero shit for the day, and they're in jail and then the public is safe, like that really dark and evil person that's out there. And my wife bought me this shirt, and it says, "I hunt the things that go bump in the night." And I thought that was pretty cool. And I remember when the Dallas 5 happened, and my oldest son did this really awesome post on Facebook. And it said, he goes, we're here about the Dallas 5 and all this stuff. And then he says, and now I watch my dad put on the uniform and go out and do that. And I was like, okay, that was a proud moment for me, because I'm going, okay, my son acknowledges that. But not everything we do is terrible. I mean, I have found lost children, reunited with their parents. There's nothing like giving that single mom back her stolen car. Like that's all she had.
Yep.
There's good stuff that happens in our careers. You get a chance to do some good. I don't think anybody in their right mind gets into a public service job without some sort of sense of being noble. I genuinely think that people are good. The vast majority of people are really good. And the vast majority of people will see you broken down on the freeway, and if you're by yourself in a dark, they're going to pull over and help you. That's the world I want to live in. And I want to believe that people are good. And do we have problems in society? Sure. Are things kind of effed up right now? Yeah. I've heard people talk about rapture and all that, and I go, you know what? I'm sorry. Every 20 years, somebody thinks rapture's happening. Okay, and as far as we're concerned, it wasn't the Aztec calendar. Yeah. We're already gone. Already gone. And if AOC is correct, the world's going to be flooded in 10 years now. So we're kind of screwed now. But I genuinely think that people are good. So getting back to the thing about how do we fix things, I think we need to start being good to each other.
Talk to your neighbor.
Yeah. Treat everyone the way you want to be treated.
Exactly.
Wow, imagine
I know. I'll be the first to admit that I'm a road rage asshole, but it stays in my car. Unless you're driving a Prius. Then if you're driving a Prius, you know what you've done.
Get the fuck out of the left lane.
Get out of the left lane. That happened a bunch of times yesterday.
Literally. Gray one on the 8th.
I think we all have that one that we remember. But help you. Yes, definitely talk to your neighbors, know who your neighbors are.
Turn the TV off, talk to your neighbors.
Right. Go outside, have a barbecue. Get off your goddamn phone. Social media is, I think... Okay, so I'm not a big Zuckerberg fan, and the reason being I'm not a big Zuckerberg fan is I sit there and go, okay, well, any platform that was started off as space smash and for degrading people, that kind of seemed to how it seems to have been forgotten.
Yes.
That's how this whole thing started out. I do like it I get to see, like, my best friend from junior high lives in Nashville. I get to talk to him every once in a while, but I like to.
You get to see what's going on.
I get to see, and I have a lot of people in my dog world. Now, I have been probably trying to get myself in Facebook jail since I've now retired, and I can say whatever I really want to say, because there's been a lot of stuff with politics as of late that really kind of chapped my hide. And now that I'm not going to have to worry about reflecting on my agency that I worked for, which I loved dearly, I get to say what I want to say and exercise my First Amendment rights. And the cool thing about it is I remember, and I don't know who said this, but I remember in high school, we were taught, there was a person who said, I may disagree with you, but I will fight to the death for your right to say it. And just because we disagree with each other doesn't mean that we don't care about each other as human beings. I think we've gotten to the point now where, if we have a different political view from each other, we think that person is evil, and we don't. We shouldn't, well, especially one party.
We're told they're evil.
We're told they're evil, and they're not. They're simply not. People are generally good. Like, I think we talked about it earlier, was like, we're going to agree with probably about 70-80% of stuff. Mm-hmm. We will. But what's the quick? There is no quick fix. It's going to be a process. It's a pendulum. This happened in the 60s and the 70s. It changed in the 80s and the 90s. Then unfortunately, we had 9/11 happen, which I think another one is coming.
History repeats itself.
Yes, absolutely it does.
Everything.
And we forget history because life is so good for us, we have to make up shit to be angry about it.
Well, the thing is with the whole anger thing, social media in general, No one wants to see dogs being walked in the park. They want to see what's going on, the bad stuff, because it draws attention.
Mm-hmm.
The more attention something gets, the more money comes in for ads and stuff like that. You follow the money.
If it bleeds, it leads.
Exactly.
And that was wasn't that from Spider-Man, I think?
I think so. So when it comes to the media, the news network says, hey, the event this weekend raised $2 million. No one cares. No one cares. They want to know what cop killed this person, that person, because it draws attention. So people need to stop. Again, talk to your neighbor. Stop. Put the phone down. Go take the kids to the beach.
Do you remember a time, and we're probably slightly older than you, but when...
28.
Okay, so I'm 50.
Jesus.
I know, right? How
He
is
is
that even
retired.
possible? Yeah, right. When something major happened, they would have this. We interrupt this broadcasting for a special report, and if it was and if it was that important, they would cut into programming. You know, as the world turns, or Price is Right, or whatever you were watching. Obviously, spent a lot of time home and sick watching that kind of stuff, but you would have that, not this 24-hour cycle of, and I don't care what news station it is, it's not good. All the reporting is just the bad in the world, and as long as you keep hearing bad, 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 that's all you think is bad, 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 and that's not the way the world operates. The world is generally pretty damn good. I think people are pretty damn good. Is there evil out there? Yeah, but as a community, and I think as a community and society, we can conquer that. Are we going to fix every little problem? Nope. And once we fix one problem, guess what's going to happen? Another one's going to pop up.
Yep.
That's just the way it is. And we need to work together to get it done. You know, there is no short-term, quick fix. It's a process. You know, it is definitely a process.
I think it's going to take a long time.
Well, so let's look at the 60s and stuff. Though they didn't have the media that we have now. They didn't have the ability to talk and to communicate just by grabbing your phone, and I could text message anybody in the world anywhere. So information spreads quicker. I would like to see good information spread a lot quicker.
Yeah, but who do you hold? It goes back to the accountability thing, right? If you watch Fox News, they're telling you one thing. You turn to CNN, it's the same thing, but in a different narrative.
Sure,
You're
because
like,
it's fun.
so you talk to like my grandfather. He watches Fox News, right?
Right.
You talk to my mom. She watches CNN. So when I talk to them, it's like, where are you guys getting your information from? Like, are you serious?
So I tell people is to have multiple sources of information. And you take, as an adult, and as a U.S. citizen, it's your job to be informed, and you take all your bits of information and you do your own research on it. That's the cool thing about having all this information completely accessible to you. You make your own decisions, and you vet. Now, there's a really cool clip that Denzel Washington does, and it's where
he's been on a roll lately.
Yeah, well, this is actually from a few years back, where he says the media. If you don't read the newspaper, you're not informed. If you do, you're misinformed. But what he went on to talk about, which I thought was absolutely brilliant, and he's one of my favorite actors. I mean, Man on Fire is one of my all-time.
Training Day.
Yeah, well, let's not go with Training Day.
Man on Fire is good.
Man on Fire that is amazing. I mean, he is just unreal in that role. But he went on to say it's the rush to be first, not to be right.
Yeah.
So you don't vet it. And if they get something wrong, it's not a headline of, hey, remember that headline from yesterday? We completely screwed the pooch on that one.
The retraction is on page 30.
Yeah, and
under an ad.
or at the end, because it'll be like, let's say it's TV media, they'll go, at the very end of the broadcast, as they're signing off, yeah, we want to make a correction from yesterday's broadcast where we said this happened, and nobody's paying attention
And the music
to it.
from Wheel of Fortune is starting.
Exactly.
Oh,
I would love
accountability.
Holy accountability,
shit,
I think,
man.
is great. But you know what, dude? I truly believe that we live in the absolute best country ever, and that it's a pendulum. It's going to get better. Humanity can only handle so much. I'm already seeing the swing happen, and I'll throw out our current possible recall that we got going on.
Yeah,
Where I think I have friends who are very liberal, they lost their businesses. They didn't have jobs, and their employees lost their jobs. So they were business owners. I'm not a COVID denier. I know people have been on ECMO machines, for months. I have friends who have lost family members. It's legit. But we turn around and look at states who did things a little differently, and I have a real hard time not recalling somebody who mishandles $30 million in unemployment fraud. And if he was so worried, what about French Laundry?
Yeah.
It's the dictatorship part where you kind of go, okay, that's the part that pisses me off. You're sitting there telling us that we can't do something, but you go out and do it yourself.
For me and not for me.
Right. Well, and then, God, the one that just pissed me off the most was, Obama and the birthday party, when somebody had the audacity to say, well, these are sophisticated and vaccinated people. And I was just like, are you shitting me? Did you just say that? And we look at Nancy Pelosi's birthday party thing that she just had, and the only people who were wearing masks that whole time are the people who are serving them. But nobody else. And then I look at schools, and I kind of go, okay, you've got kids wearing masks in schools, but what's the difference between that and going to a restaurant and sitting down and taking out my mask? I mean, I just want consistency.
Across the board.
I just want the common sense part to come back.
Yeah.
It's a power grab, I think.
Well, once they take the power, they're not going to give it back. And it never does.
Right.
Once a law is made, it doesn't get retracted.
Yeah, so where is the breaking point to where people start to stand up and go, listen, enough is a fucking enough?
I think we're there.
I think we're here. The Nathan Fletcher thing we're talking about. You saw the people up there.
But didn't they pass it before they had the public speaking? Something?
No, he was wasn't like 15 hours of public speaking.
Oh, and people roasted him.
Right, and as well they should, because that's their First Amendment right. So one of the really cool thing I heard somebody say was, don't be an advocate for your guy. Whatever politician it is, they work for you.
Yep.
Hold their feet to the fire. Hold them accountable. Don't be, John Smith's the best no matter whatever. No. Hold John Smith accountable. You said you were going to do this. You did not do that. Therefore, I am not going to vote for you. Now we have the whole voter thing. Don't get me started on voter fraud.
Me either.
Because that's a whole, we could go off on that for like 6-7 hours.
Oh, yeah.
Let me write that down.
Yeah, we'll have Pete back in 6 months. We'll talk about that.
Well, I want to talk about voter fraud and let's do human trafficking. I'd love to have you back on. I really want to know about this human trafficking because
unfortunately, San Diego is one of the hubs of human trafficking.
Just give us a little teaser.
A lot of it is gang related, and let's talk about different types of human trafficking. We have human trafficking coming across the border.
This child trafficking is what is really getting under my skin.
And then we have the human trafficking, and we'll call it the sex trade because that's exactly what it is. So they're related because you have the border stuff coming across with these policies that we have currently in place. We are making the cartels so much money. We are giving them the opportunity to make so much money. Unlike drugs that get caught coming across the border, they lose those drugs. If we catch somebody coming across the border, and everybody who crosses the border pays a tax to whatever cartel is in control. It doesn't matter. Are there the few that slip in? Sure, there's a couple of guys that will go to the canyon, whatever. But the vast majority of them pay a tax to use whatever area. And then they have to pay the coyote to guide them through. And if they get caught, that's just too effing bad. You got to come back. Well, guess what? Unlike the drugs, which get taken to the DEA lab, and now are evidence, they lost them. The human product that just got sent back, they got to pay again. So now this cycle keeps happening. They don't care. They absolutely do not care about any of them. They don't.
You saw recently, a few months ago, when they dropped the
kid
babies over the
they know that we're going to rush over there.
Me insane.
They know that we're going to rush over there. So that's the little teaser on the border part. The the human trafficking. Then once they get over here, these poor people, both male and female, then they get into almost indentured servitude.
They take their, well, they guess they don't have passports.
Right, they don't have passports. But they make them think that they, you have to work for them. And what my biggest problem that I have is a lack of severe penalties for these people when they get caught. They don't.
It should be massive.
Well, they
and
should
swift.
be right, and they should be one of these sentences. That was a really cool thing about that I loved working with the feds on something. I know it's really weird for me to say I like working with the feds on something, but
Not DOJ, right?
well, no. It's actually, you know what? The last 6 years that I was on that Homeland Security Investigations Task Force, I was impressed. Do they have problems? Sure. What government agency doesn't? Okay.
From the government, I'm here
Right.
to help.
Yeah, exactly. That's a word you do not want to hear. But I was really, and I have some close, dear friends that are on that are HSI special agents, and I have a whole different respect for those guys because I got to work with them as my partners. The trafficking side the human trafficking side on this side is mostly controlled by gangs.
That are affiliated with cartels.
No, actually, not really.
Huh.
Most of them are like Bloods and Crips. There are some that are Hispanic gangs as well. The human trafficking side that I see dealing with mostly with the Hispanic Latino community would be there are some that do the human trafficking that we were talking about earlier, but that would be more like prostitution in migrant camps. Okay, because they force them into prostitution and it's a terrible thing where they're these poor people are brought across and then they're traded like, okay, well, you owe us $5,000, you're gonna have to work it off. Well, work it off means that you're gonna sell your body, and they're these guys, these workers, they're 10 workers a night. I mean, the traumatic psychological stuff that's going on with these people. But then we get to the stuff that we have here on the side in the States where we're dealing with U.S. trafficking. You have a lot of grooming going on, a lot of things that go on with it. The thing where you hear, oh yeah, that guy's a pimp. Well, being a pimp is a bad thing. Being a pimp is where you have a stable of prostitutes that you control, and you control them by force. Mm-hmm. And you have a bottom bitch, which is your next in line. You have your pimp and your bottom bitch, which is like your highest ranking female.
So Corey.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Corey is the bottom bitch here.
Hashtag.
Yeah, hashtag bottom bitch. But you get into the bottom bitch part, and honestly, the bottom bitch a lot of times is pretty violent, pretty mean. They do some pretty terrible things, but they're established like control and dominance, and that is a big problem here. When I got to give kudos to a couple of things that I wasn't a big fan of at the time, which was like getting rid of the personal ads on Craigslist and Backpage, because that is where a lot of the trafficking would take place. And I cannot recall a single operation that I was involved in where we did not get at least one juvenile trafficking victim. And as young as 14. Now, then again, we have to go, okay, where are this 14-year-old's parents? Because that was something that was brought up with all the stuff that is happening in Chicago. They call it Chirac,
Mm-hmm.
Where you've got 12-year-olds out at 3 o'clock in the morning carrying guns. Well, why is a 12-year-old out at 3 o'clock in the morning? Where's that kid's parents? So I want to know where that kid's parents are for the human trafficking side. I can't tell you how many times that we've finally got them to break and tell us who they are, legitimately. And then once we find out who they are, well, they've been missing for 3 weeks and they're not listed as a runaway or somebody that's at risk when we run them through NCIC.
So the parents never
The
even...
parents are like, oh, well,
Somebody else's
little
problem
Jane
now.
is gone. So, you get it. They have this mind. The psychological damage that happens to those young ladies and some young men is awful. I mean, PTSD like you would not believe. And they're taking something that should be so amazing, so wonderful, sharing. Yeah, sacred. I think that's a very good term for it. Where you're sharing yourself with somebody and that is stolen from them, and it will never be the same. They can never, ever enjoy that without having that other portion in the back of their head. And it's just absolute terrible thing.
This is a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Yeah, and there's so many predators out there right now, and they're not really facing a whole lot of consequences. But what I was saying about the feds is that Fed time for human trafficking, minimum 10 years.
That's it?
Yeah, I agree with you. Minimum 10 years. I'm one of those people too that think of like if you get convicted of drug dealing, your penalty needs to be needs to be serious, because you're the one who's putting that shit out on the street. You're the one who is going to be supplying that kid. Fentanyl is a huge deal, and that's another China thing. Why are we not holding China accountable? China and the Netherlands are the biggest importer or exporters of the chemicals precursors made for fentanyl, and the same thing with methamphetamine. It's amazing what areas in Mexico are the most highly sought after, and you would think it'd be like the big growing fields and stuff like that. It's not. It's the ports. The ports. They need to control the ports to bring in the chemicals to make the meth.
Right. So, do you think, since kids under 18, technically your parents are responsible for, right?
Right.
If that kid does something bad, do you think the parents should take some responsibility?
It really all depends on the circumstances.
Say, for instance, I'll try to...
Financially, sure.
Your example where the child was gone for 3 weeks, never reported missing.
Right.
14-year-old.
Should there be? Yeah, that would be child neglect. You would imagine that.
Which is probably what, a misdemeanor.
Depends. If there's injury, then it's a felony. But no injury, it'd be a misdemeanor.
But when it comes to punishment, there's a reason why I don't take a gun and go to the bank, because I'm going to get in trouble if I try to rob the bank and be taken away.
Well, why would you try to rob the bank?
Because I need money.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? Though? Like if Corey's daughter goes out and robs a bank. Well, why the fuck did that happen?
Well, it depends. So there's circumstances. So I get where you're coming from, but we can't hold parents responsible for their children's actions. It depends for a crime where it's something that they did and they thought of. So if they have intent and they go out and rob somebody, you can't hold the parent responsible for that. Okay. Now, would the parent be probably financially responsible if there was injuries or damage? Yeah, I could see that happening. But that's civil, not criminal.
Makes sense.
Like if my kid, when they were minors, if they crashed a car, okay, it's my insurance that's going to be paying for it. I'm financially responsible. There is financial liability, but what we were talking about with not reporting the runaway, well, yeah, there should be consequences for not reporting the kid as a runaway, for not trying to get the system involved, for not getting a detective who's knows how to follow people on social media, knows how to ping somebody's phone, knows how to write the search warrant real quick so we can start tracking them and finding out where they are. That is negligence for sure, but where does that line get drawn for? I can't say for your actions. Let's say you're Corey's kid and you stab somebody. How can I hold him financially responsible for your actions? You can't. Financially, you could for damages.
But then civil, and...
That's civil and criminal. Unless there was something that he did, here's your knife. This knife is for protection. Anybody F's with you, stab them. Okay, I can see that because you could possibly be an accessory because you gave him the weapon. You told him, hey, this is what I want you to do. Or if anybody disses the set, you go out there and you stab them, you shank them, you stand down for the set. That would be where, and that kind of stuff does happen. But as far as, I really can't see anything else other than that.
One last teaser.
Okay.
China, fentanyl. China moving into TJ?
No, China moved into TJ. Okay. Not moving, it's moved.
So we pulled all the businesses out of Mexico and China moved right in. Please excuse this interruption for an old man pee break. We'll be right back.
All right, guys, welcome back. This is part 2. We were starting to get juicy on the first episode, and we figured we might as well just keep going with it because
I'm here.
You're here, and I got some little sugar in me now, and now I'm twitching.
I was in here.
What happens in the gun store
after dark? Should have been called the gun store after dark. That would have been a good
name.
There
you go.
Or the fix.
No, the Gunstar After Dark is kind of like doing HBO have like After Dark thing,
Yeah.
and you're 13 years old, like, oh, After Dark's on.
But who are you?
I'm Corey from Firearms Unlimited California.
Ooh, FUCA.
As you can see, here's our selection back here.
250 rounds of ammo, huh?
Yeah, we got all
Hard to
kinds of
find
stuff
those
right
days.
now.
Yep.
You do. Actually, I like those core belts.
They're very nice.
They're
I've
very
had mine
good.
for I think 8 years now.
And so I've always been looking for a belt for concealed carry. That is probably one of the best belts. Because, I like the adjustable portion of it because if I've had a heavy carb load day,
Easy.
Whoa! It's not that kind of channel,
So-
pal.
Ooh.
So yeah,
Yeah.
you have a big lunch.
Yeah,
you just,
you had a weekend where you had a little too much, and you can expand on a little bit,
Or-
or depending on which gun I'm carrying, which one ever might be a little bit larger. Definitely, I carry the Crossbreed Reckoning holster, and I love it. That's my go-to everyday carry.
what firearm?
Sig P365.
Oh, where'd you get that?
Where did I get it? I think the Glock store.
Ooh.
Must have been before you knew me.
I did. It was actually way before I knew you. I didn't know when one of my partners from my task force told me about this place, and I was like, all right.
Whose name we won't mention.
We won't mention it, but he's a fantastic dude. Love him like a brother.
He is. He's a very
He's a
good guy.
good dude.
He got you a good present one time. Well,
Yeah.
no, that was me actually.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yes, you did. You did.
James got one too.
But you know what? You never know when you're gonna need one of those.
It's what's it called again?
Breach pen. And you know what's funny is I was watching the video on that, the how-to stuff, and I'm going, where we are in fire country,
Mhm.
if you need to egress or get out,
That's the way to
or
do it.
degress, and you don't have bolt cutters with you, throw one of those bad boys in your glove box, and you can melt that lock and get out. If you run to a gate that's locked or whatever.
Here's the problem. I gave one to my mother.
Oh, okay. Is your mama pyro?
Gave one to my father.
Okay.
They just moved up to Alpine. It's way back in Alpine, but it backs up to Harbison Canyon.
Okay.
So you know where the school is off Harbison
Yeah, I
Canyon.
know which one. Mm-hmm.
So the fire road goes down.
It does. It's like off to there's one on east-west side. Isn't there an access road either side?
Yes.
Okay.
So that is the thickest chain that I've ever seen in my life. You're not cutting that with bolt cutters,
No, there's no way.
but with the breech pen, you cut that thing right up.
That thing's pretty cool. As long as, although when I was watching the videos on how to use it, it's actually the older I get, the more like I actually probably should read these instructions and watch something to make
I
sure
thought that was the opposite.
I know you would think, but no. When I watched the videos on the stuff, I was like, okay, don't tilt it. Actually, you want it tilted up because the slag cuts.
Yeah, you don't want
but
it
you
to
got to
drop on
be
you.
you got to be very careful with that. Don't do it in flip flops. That's a bad idea.
So I put welding gloves in my mom's trunk. I
Right.
put one of those in the trunk, and I put a welding helmet. I just said good luck.
Yeah, it's we are in fire country. You got to be ready for anything.
You gotta be ready for anything in this world.
Right, and those are actually tools of breech pens. Because when I got it from you guys, I went and talked to one of my buddies, who's one of our SWAT team leaders, and I'm like, "Hey, have you seen?" He goes, "Yeah, we just got them. Everybody has one." So
I am a dealer.
I know.
But you're
I
a
know.
dealer? You actually
Yeah.
got like your license?
Yeah,
and
you were
everything?
telling me about that. I remember when you got that. So,
How much does it go for a pop?
I think there's different burn times. There's one that's like 16 seconds, and there's one that's like 21 or 22 seconds.
So just like for the public edification, the thing we're talking about is this. It's a breech pin, and it's basically like a super mini torch.
Thermite.
Yes, basically what it is. So it's like a cutting torch, and
It looks like a flare, road flare.
it does, and it has but it even has like on the packaging, it has that like a little striker like for a matchbook, but it gets super hot and it'll melt a metal lock, or I think you could probably even like do you think you
cut a
could
door
breach a
off.
door? I was going to say, do you
You could
think you
cut
could
a
cut a door lock with that?
I think you could cut the hinges off a car door.
Okay.
That thing, no problem.
We should do a YouTube video on that.
We're
I
going
see
to.
that ending very badly.
I have a little brother.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Oh yeah. You ever seen those videos that the picture of the 70s when the kid we're jumping our bikes back before everybody became a pussy, and you knew the friendship level though, because like your best friend, he was the guy that was right next to the ramp your little brother, who was the one that was at the end.
Yeah.
Because if he got hit, you're like, don't tell mom. Don't tell mom. And he's got this BMX tire track across his abdomen. Might be broken rib. Like, you don't say anything to mom.
I remember I got in a fight with my brother. We were 5 years apart. And I got in a fight with him, and he had his keys in his hand. Or my keys in his hands. I can't remember. I punched him like in the hand, and the key went into his hand, and we both looked at each other like,
Shut up, shut up, shut up.
no. Oh, we're both screwed now.
Yeah, we're grandma's
Let's pull that out of there. Let's just pretend this didn't happen.
Your hand has gangrene on it. Why? It only happens from house keys getting stuck into your arm.
Yeah. I want to show the breach pin.
So he's
Do
Corey.
people buy that off of your website?
We don't have them on the website because, we don't have them on the website because at first these weren't available to the public. They didn't, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
So they wanted to have credentials. They wanted to have people to have credentials in order to purchase them. And then they said, okay, well, we're going to let the dealers, at the dealer's discretion. If it's somebody coming in and they have credentials and you want to get their credentials, great. If not, that's okay too, but it's at your discretion.
But I could see on a, quote, civilian side how helpful of a tool this could be in certain circumstances.
Especially in this county.
So we'll talk about, we were talking earlier on the previous podcast we did together, we talked about the mass shootings, active shooters. Well, Virginia Tech, and Columbine, the officers that were going in did not have breaching tools. And that was a big deal. So we ended up having like breaching packs, where we had the backpacks that had the Halligan tool and the bolt cutter and everything else. And, I don't know if you ever carried one of those, but they suck. You're not moving stealthful or fast. And especially if you're carrying like a 30-pound, 40-pound door knocker, you're the fat guy at the back end. Me, I'm like,
Right.
Yeah. But they that having something like that, I think, is a fantastic tool. Having 2 or 3,
there's
you need the burn
cool
time.
videos of it.
Yeah, I've seen the really cool stuff on it. I mean,
Conex boxes, kind of Conex boxes.
oh, I could totally see that.
Get the hell out of here. Seriously?
Yeah.
All right, we need to film a video. How many do you have in stock?
It's classified.
Yeah.
Do you have more than one?
Yes.
Let's go.
Yeah, burn time, baby.
Let's do it.
The Great Fire of 2021, and we're gonna blame you.
You
Hey.
need to find a place to do it.
Actually, I know a place. I have a place. To do that.
We'll do it and we'll take some videos.
and
We do it at my house.
The guy whose property it is would absolutely love it, but he'd be the one who wants to hold it
Well,
because
that's
he's
fine.
that kind of guy.
We'll take a
He was a
video.
door gunner in Vietnam. He's fantastic. He's a great dude.
I'll get along with him well.
Yeah, my kind of guy.
Yeah, he's a fantastic guy.
But who the fuck are you?
My name is Pete. I just retired from 31 years law enforcement, local law enforcement.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
I made that retirement, which is nice.
Thanks for staying in that long.
Yeah, it was a great 31 years. Having a chance to look back at it now, I really look at what an amazing career that I had. I got 0 complaints. I mean, okay, that's bullshit.
That's not true.
I
will
do
call
have
you out
some.
on that.
I do have some, but for the vast majority of it was a really good experience for the most part. Just like any employer, there's going to be stuff that I don't agree with, but I'd say for the most part, it was fantastic. It was fun. It was also one of those careers too that you could go, man, I'm having a really, really crappy day, and go to work and go, my day might be crappy, but not nearly as crappy as that guy right here who's passed out in the alley with literally covered in his own shit. My day's not that bad.
Until you had to pick the guy up.
Yeah, no,
Bring him
no,
in.
that's why you call
5150.
paramedics.
Fire. We need
Yeah,
fire.
this is a medical. This is definitely medical. You can definitely tell. So, and during my career, I got to do a little bit of patrol, and I spent the majority of my time in a specialized assignment of one sort or another. Our gang suppression unit, patrol K9, narcotics on like a street level. But where we were, which is the city Chula Vista, which is a great agency to work for, I called this the FedEx hub of the dope world. So there was just, I always called it the nicest city closest to the border, because we have some very nice neighborhoods. We have
there are.
there's some really cool
Is
stuff
East
going on
Lake
there.
considered Chula Vista?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, but don't tell
Don't tell
some of
East
the
Lake
people
people
from.
that.
It's like talking to people from La Jolla. Like I remember one lady was like, "Well, I called for the East Lake Police Department." I'm like, no, ma'am, you didn't, because you're in the city of Chula Vista.
What does it say on your address?
Right. What's the zip code? But what a fantastic city to work for. So much stuff to do.
Is that a female chief or is that?
Yeah, Rox. Yeah, Chief
I
Kennedy.
heard of the grocery store.
Yeah, she's actually an East County girl.
was in Rancho San Diego.
Yeah, she's an East County girl, and she's actually been my supervisor from when she was a two-striper. When she was, I've worked for her numerous times throughout
Somebody
my
that
career.
has your back.
Yeah, and I will tell you this: somebody who genuinely cares about her people.
And I know that you would tell us if that
Yeah,
wasn't.
if
true, so
that
that's
wasn't-
big.
You know, our first chief that I worked for, Chief Emerson, he passed away like a year ago. Cancer. We didn't see eye to eye on a lot of stuff, but that wasn't my job. But he did give me my job. So he did see something. But you know, he was a motor guy, and I was not real big on writing tickets. So how I started my career was with the San Diego County Marshal.
What is the San Diego County Marshal?
So they're no longer in existence.
Is
So
that like
Is it like a Texas Ranger?
so think about the U.S. Marshals. And they handle federal courts. San Diego County Marshal did the same thing, but on a county level. So they were bailiffs in courts. They were in charge of courthouse security. They went out and looked after went after fugitives, people with warrants and whatnot. That's what they did.
So now the sheriff does that.
Now the sheriff is, in 1999, the county had the sheriffs and the marshals absorbed. The marshal's office was absorbed by the sheriff, and they just took everybody that was a deputy marshal, made them deputy sheriffs, which was a great opportunity for the people that were marshals because they got to go out and be real cops.
Yeah.
You know, real deputies. I left in '97. And went
lateral.
Yeah, no, I actually went. I had to go through a whole police academy
Yeah.
again, and that was 1997. When I was 25 years old, and got to go through the San Diego Regional Police Law Enforcement Academy
Is that
at
at Miramar?
At Miramar College. That was my job. Met some of my lifelong friends. You know, Sammy, and
I need to call him.
yeah, he's my brother from another mother. Love that guy. And
We didn't have you both on.
Sam's
'Cause apparently there's some stories there.
Sammy's a good dude, man. Sammy's a good guy.
Sammy's our SIG. He doesn't like when I call him our SIG rep, but he's
Is that
our.
where we got that 1911 for me?
We won't talk about that.
But like Sammy, our families are very tight. He was at my retirement party. We see each other. We vacation together.
He's a great guy, and you mentioned previously the circle that you keep.
Yeah, he's my Ohana. He and Corey and the kids are definitely. I was doing some training classes up in the town where his daughter was going to college, and every time I go up there, I always go meet her for dinner. I take her out, and I always go, "Hey, Uncle Pete will take you out. Where do you want to go?" Olive Garden. Like, really? Okay, Uncle Pete's here with a credit card, and I'm like, "I want to take you out someplace nice. You can, sit down. We can have no Olive Garden."
Breadsticks, man.
Yeah. Well,
They get
okay.
you.
I like my carbs, as you can tell. I like my carbs. So I got when I went to the academy, I came out, was in patrol for about a year and a half. I got fortunate enough to get into the gang suppression unit. Worked that for about a year and 1 or 2 months, and then a spot opened up in K9, and I really always wanted to be a patrol dog handler. K9 was my thing. I'm 50 years old and I still bring home dogs. So
You are coming to my house?
I know, yeah, we
Okay.
I definitely will be coming to your house. But got into Patrol Canine, got promoted out of that after about 5 years. Worked at Single Purpose Patrol Dog. It was a big old 90-pound Dutch Shepherd imported from Holland. He was a KNPV PH1 dog. It's a dog thing.
Is it classified on how much these dogs cost?
Well, at that time, no, it's not classified at all. But at that time, Bob was $6,500. That was 1990. That was in 2000. Right now,
Aren't they like 50 grand?
depends. So no, you would like a tier 1 dog
Yeah.
for some like special operations, probably. But you're talking about a very unique animal.
That's not even an animal. That's like a grizzly bear.
Well, you're talking about a dog that has an on and off switch. But then we can get into look at service dogs. Okay, that's a very special dog. They have an on and off switch. They're the dogs that will be in a restaurant with somebody who has a need for a service dog. They'll be underneath the table and won't move.
I want to hear the rest of your
Oh,
career,
the rest
but I
of it
have
before
a
we go.
question real quick. Are you able, at this point in your life, are you able to look at a dog, and let's say James' dog or my dog, Liberty Bell, and say, that dog would be great for that?
Not just by looking. No.
Playing with it for a little bit.
Well, there's an evaluation process for various things. And you can do the evaluation process and then be in the middle of training a month later and something will come up that there's no way to test for it until a certain situation arises. We've actually had dogs that have been out in the field and past training, past everything, and then something comes up. And it could be like all of a sudden now the dog is very concerned about being in a tight spot, meaning like physically tight spot in a confined area, and they don't want to. They don't want to engage, meaning they don't want to apprehend a suspect. Where they're just kind of like, okay, I don't like this, because all dogs are going to do one of four things when they get confronted with a threat. They're going to fight, flight, avoid, or submit. Fight. You want to fight? Okay, I'll take 2 steps at you. Flight, turn and run. That's the human side, fight or flight. Then dogs can come up with 2 different little things. They have avoidance, or it's like the ostrich sticking their head in the sand. I see you, and let's say you're a threat, and I'm the dog. Okay, well if I look over here, and I ignore you, then you don't exist, and hopefully you'll go away. And then submit, where they just roll over and show their belly and say, hey, whatever you're going to do, please make it quick and just get it over with.
Dude, you need to come over. Holy shit.
But with the it takes there's an evaluation process that we go through. We do have testing that we do. There's kind of like a protocol, if you will, of things that we do to test the dogs for serviceability, but there are no guarantees. We talked about price. The general price right now for a dual-purpose patrol dog candidate is probably anywhere between $12,000 to $20,000, depending on where you get it from, what kind of health guarantees you get on it. There is a shortage of dogs right now. There's definitely a shortage of quality dogs. I can tell you I've seen a lot of what I would call subpar, or for layman terms, garbage dogs, where they show certain things. They're only able to do certain things, but you couldn't get them to do the stuff that we would get dogs to do a while ago. It's a lot of breeding is not some people's best area of the dog world. We as Americans are not that good at it. We're getting better. There's some kennels that are freaking amazing at it. I'll give a shout out to Logan House Kennels with Mike Suttle.
Where are they out of?
West Virginia. Mike is, we've become friends with him
If
over
you're
the
going to
years.
talk about West Virginia and breeding.
Yeah, well, we're not talking about inbreeding. And what's funny is Mike will usually be the one to beat you to that because he's that cool of a dude. But Mike is actually a competitive shooter when he was in the Marine Corps. So Mike's got some really good dogs because he understands the breeding. He has some labs that I'm telling you right now, those dogs think they're Malinois. He treats them the same, but their drives in those dogs they're just amazing. But canine is what I loved doing. So as a patrol dog canine handler for a while, then I went into our narcotics section. I started the narcotics dog program that we had, and I had a black lab at that time. Her name was Snitch, and I stayed there for about 7.5 years in our street level program. But again, like I talked a little earlier about, we worked everything from dime bags to kilos. I think Snitch's largest find was 6,187 pounds of weed. Yeah, that's 3 tons. Yeah, that was a lot. It was in a big box truck. I got it she passed away a couple of years ago in February, and I have her ashes, and the picture of her and the ashes is her in the box truck with all that weed behind her. It's a good picture. And then I was blessed to have Turbo, who was a Belgian Malinois, and he was dual purpose. He was patrol and narcotics, and that dog was freaking amazing. When I went to the task force, I handed him off to another handler.
That must have been hard to do.
It was, but I've always had that mentality of trying to keep the mindset of that this is not my dog. This is property of the city, and he's a tool. And he was that dog had a nose on him, and he was a great patrol dog. When you have a dual purpose dog, lots of times you get a dog that's really good at one area and in another, but they're still pretty good. But that dog was special. He was really good at both. And then Cooper, who was my last dog that I had, It was a single-purpose lab, big 90-pound boy, big yellow Dudley colored dog, which means he had a pink nose, and he was basically white. We called him the dorky polar bear. And he was just the sweetest dog, not a mean bone in his body, and he just was a fantastic nose on him too. Good dog. He's the one I miss the most. Probably because that was just recently.
Yeah.
I only retired a couple months ago, but it was one of those things where they live with you. And then when I was in I went back to our gang unit after I left narcotics, and my focus was on interdiction. And I was getting really good at finding compartments in vehicles for hidden drugs and money.